Russia wants to send hundreds of thousands of new soldiers to Ukraine as Moscow's allies call on Vladimir Putin to stop the invasion. And to talk about it and more, we're joined by Jon Sweet, co-founder of Interep 360, retired U.S. Army colonel and former director of the U.S. European Command Intelligence Engagement Division. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Great to have you back with us. So, Colonel, Russia allegedly loses more soldiers than Ukrainians do, more than it is able to deliver to the front line, as a matter of fact. And Vladimir Putin needs to mobilize more soldiers, in effect. Now, how many does he need, and where will he get them from?
First of all, that's a great look. The Russians haven't been able to replace their combat losses since December. They're losing between 25 and 30,000 soldiers a month, both killed in action and wounded in action. So finding those soldiers to replace them has become the challenge. What we do know is that he's reached back out to North Korea. Reporting out tells us that upwards to 30,000 North Koreans may be committed. The other thing the Russians are doing, they're pulling Russian citizens off the street, out of classrooms, and they're putting them up on the fronts. Short of a mobilization, their answer is just to put bodies in uniforms and get them forward. And that's a technique, but mass in the 21st century doesn't defeat modern technology. So he has a problem on his hands.
Well, having said that, on the other hand, Ukraine faces a very similar problem, and it struggles to get more soldiers to the front line. I mean, it is apparently winning the drone war, but can it really stop the invasion without new soldiers?
Yeah, that's obviously a question that we'll find out in the future. But look, Ukraine's firing upwards of 10,000 drones a day. That's just an amazing number, and they're able to fight the drone warfare and avoid putting their soldiers on the front lines. If you look at Ukraine's strategy of kill zone strategy, those kill zones are 10 to 15 kilometers saturated with drones and persistent surveillance to look for targets within those boxes, and they're attacking them. So most Russian soldiers aren't even, according to one of the reports from a military channel, most soldiers aren't even getting to the zero line. They're being killed before they get to the zero line. So it's a technique. And yes, you're correct. Ukraine is manpower short, but they're able to offset that shortage through the drone warfare and just through the sheer volume of drones that they have.
Right. One thing is the war on the front line. The other thing is long-range strikes. Both countries conduct, and Russia ramps up its attacks against Ukraine with some about 100 missiles and 1,700 drones and glide bombs last week alone. Now, it is also reported that it is about to reach the pre-war number of tanks, despite heavy losses it has sustained. So how would you rate Russia's military production capabilities after more than 4 years of war? I'm talking about Western sanctions here. Are they biting at all?
So they're having an effect, clearly, but not necessarily on Russia's ability to produce additional weapon systems. Look, a lot of the weapon systems that we're seeing now are coming North Korea, particularly the artillery, the ballistic missiles, and the munitions themselves, not to mention the small arms. That's coming from their partners in North Korea. It's also coming from Belarus. Russia has depleted their stockpiles, their supplies. We've seen T-54, 55s on the battlefield. They've pulled them out of their warehouses, so they're getting desperately short, but yet they're also able to continue producing their systems. But now look, the systems they're producing aren't necessarily modern systems with the latest gadgets, because quite frankly, they don't have the time to train the operators on how to use them. So while they may have technology, they just don't have skilled labor in order to use the weapon systems.
Right. Let's talk about big politics for a moment now. We've seen something that a few years ago would be absolutely unthinkable. A former Soviet Republic leader lecturing Vladimir Putin and urging him to stop the war in Ukraine. Now, what do you make of the Kazakh president's words?
He's not the first one. We've had leaders from Azerbaijan, also, look, former satellite states, Moldova, and other countries question and even withdraw from Soviet defense alliances. So they've been emboldened by the success of Ukraine. This 40-day influence operation is having a significant impact on Russia's ability to manage the wider Russian Federation. Russia's having problems in North Africa too, as you see. So it's not just Ukraine where they're suffering. They're suffering on the edges too, and it's emboldened some of these leaders to come out and question Putin, knowing that he can't respond to them the way in which he used to, which was by military force and intimidation.
About his intimidation, Romanians have downed already third drone in the last few days. Now, is this a deliberate Russian hybrid operation targeted against Romania, or are just these drones deviating of that course for some unknown reasons?
Right. Well, I doubt they're just deviating off the course. I think it's deliberate. It's deliberate provocation against a perceived Romania attack, but Romania is fighting back. It's also a message to other countries in the region, Bulgaria, for instance, but also to Hungary under new leadership. So for them to be shooting them down actively without warning is a change, particularly in the NATO posture, but in this case, in Romania's posture. So it's just telling Russia we're not going to tolerate these aircraft or these drones flying over our country. Now, it'd be different. Now, these are drones that they're shooting down, missiles. It'd be different if they start shooting down helicopters and jet fighters, which could be the next step. Right,
but it also shows that that's not just Ukraine, but Europe as a whole needs a brand new system of air defense. And Donald Trump promised Ukraine a license to produce Patriot interceptors. Now, Poland would like to see the joint production on its own soil. So is it likely to be approved by the White House, this Polish idea of moving the production, the future production of Patriots from Ukraine to Poland?
Well, I see that as more beneficial, at least for NATO and also for the United States. The relationship, obviously, between Poland and the United States is very close, and the United States is looking at repositioning forces from Germany into Poland, not to mention the Fifth Corps headquarters, which is located in Poland too. So it would expand and widen the relationship, but also the ability to produce these interceptors is critical, because right now there's a lot of speculation within the media that there's a shortage and that they need other people, other countries to produce these. And obviously Ukraine stepped right up with their Firepoint manufacturers, but I believe Poland would be an excellent decision as far as turning that back over to them as far as manufacturing the weapon systems and getting them out quickly. These take a long time to produce. It's not something you can just produce overnight, sometimes in cases of 4 to 6 months. But I think the Ukrainians are very effective and adaptive and resourceful enough to find ways to actually produce it.
Right. Now, the last time Donald Trump met with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the latter gave the promise of Patriot being produced in Ukraine. And what do you expect of this upcoming meeting between the two leaders? What will be Volodymyr Zelenskyy's message to Donald Trump this time?
I think the message would be the message is that one, we're not prepared to cede any terrain to Russia, but we are willing to talk to Russia about a ceasefire. Zelenskyy understands, quite frankly, that his 40-day influence operation is working. It's putting a lot of pressure on Putin. He also understands that he has the offensive capabilities to continue striding the close fight, the medium range fight, which is the interdiction fight, but also the deep fight. But he also understands his one weakness right now, and that weakness is air defense, particularly against ballistic missiles and glide bombs. So he's going to be turning to the president saying, I can win this fight, I can retain my country, but I can't defend myself adequately, and I need your help to do that. And part of that is, yes, interceptor missiles, but more importantly, the other part is to establish some type of no-fly zone. Europe's been talking about this for over a year now and still hasn't produced a no-fly zone. The other piece is the ability to affect Russia's ability to fire those missiles. It's one thing to shoot the missile out of the sky. It's another thing to take out the missile launcher and the production facilities and the storage facilities to actually stop the firing of those missiles. And I think that'll be part of the conversation as well.
Now, lastly, I'd like to ask you about the situation in the Middle East and its effect on the war in Ukraine. Well, so far, under the Trump administration, the U.S. tries to present itself as an impartial actor to the conflict in Ukraine. And And I'm wondering whether Ukraine is US ally when it comes to Iran.
I think Mr. Zelenskyy would very much like to be supportive of the United States along those lines. And you just saw recently two ships sunk in the Caspian Sea, which Russian transporter and sunk by Ukrainian drones. So he has a role. He can play a role, particularly in the continuance of moving weapon systems and technology from Russia, possibly from China and North Korea into Iran. So he offers that as an opportunity. Where he can strike them, he will, if he has the intelligence in which to do it. And that's probably one thing he'll be talking with the president about.
Jon Sweet, co-founder of Intercept 360, retired U.S. Army colonel and former director of the U.S. European Command Intelligence Engagement Division, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me back on the show.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews and news here on TVP World.